All right, let's talk about a guy with some serious ambition, an emperor named Justinian I. He looked at the shattered remains of the Roman Empire and didn't see an ending. He saw a to-do list, a massive, unbelievably expensive project that he was going to see through, no matter how much it cost in gold or in lives.
So, here's the game plan for breaking down his wild story. We're going to start with his incredible rise from a nobody to the most powerful man in the world. Then, we'll dig into his 3 huge obsessions: taking back the old empire by force, rewriting 1,000 years of Roman law, and building the most glorious city on earth. But yeah, we also have to talk about the unbelievable price tag for all that glory. And that'll lead us to the final question. Was he a genius who saved Rome, or a gambler who almost destroyed it? So think about this for a second. Could one person really put the entire Roman Empire back together? I mean, by the 6th century, the Western Empire wasn't just in decline, it was gone, sliced and diced by new kingdoms. But from his palace in Constantinople, Justinian looked at the map and basically said, nope, I can fix this.
Okay, so who was this guy with the dream this big? His backstory makes the whole thing even crazier.
So get this, Justinian wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth, not even close. He started life as a peasant boy in the Balkans, a total outsider. His ticket to the big leagues was his uncle, Justin, a tough old soldier who somehow clawed his way to the very top and became emperor. He brought his sharp-as-a-tack nephew to the capital and gave him the best education possible. But probably the smartest move Justinian ever made was marrying Theodora. Now the elites, they were horrified. She was a former actress, which back then was scandalous. But for Justinian, she was his equal, his co-ruler in everything but name, and his most brilliant and ruthless advisor.
And all of that drive, all that ambition was pointed at one single thing, one Latin phrase that sums up his entire life: renovatio imperi, the restoration of the empire. And you gotta understand, this wasn't just some campaign slogan. It was an obsession. Everything he did, every war he started, every law he passed, every single brick he laid, it all came back to this one single-minded goal. He was going to put the broken Roman world back together again.
Okay, so if you want to restore an empire, what's step 1? Well, you've got to take it back by force, right? And that's exactly what he set out to do. He launched these gigantic military campaigns to reclaim the West. And to pull it off, he had a secret weapon, an incredible general named Belisarius.
And this is where things get, well, expensive. I mean, just look at these numbers. That 100,000 pounds of gold to take North Africa? To put that in perspective, that was more than double what the entire empire made in a year. And then Italy. That war dragged on for 20 years and cost 3 times as much. When Justinian came to power, he inherited a treasury that was overflowing with cash. By the time he was done, it was empty. He completely bankrupted the state for a generation.
Yeah, the money was one thing, but this number, 5 million, this is the real cost. The historian Procopius, who was actually there to see it, said that 5 million people died just in the North Africa campaign. And that wasn't all from swords and spears. We're talking about starvation, disease, the total collapse of society. So yeah, Justinian got his province back, but it was a province of the dead.
All right, so while his armies are out there bleeding the empire dry, Justinian is back home fighting a totally different kind of war. A war not of swords, but of books and scrolls. And you could argue this one was way more important in the long run.
You have to picture what Roman law was like before this. It was an absolute mess. It's like 1,000 years of legal documents just thrown into a giant pile. Laws that said opposite things, endless opinions from different judges, just total chaos. So Justinian grabs this super smart lawyer, Tribonian, and gives him a mission impossible. Clean it all up, get rid of the junk, organize what's left, and make it make sense. The result was this masterpiece, the Corpus Juris Civilis, the body of civil law. And they were so smart about how they did it. They broke this massive job down into 4 logical chunks. First, you've got the Codex. That's all the actual laws, all in one place. Then the Digesta, which is like the greatest hits album of Roman legal thinkers. Third, the Institutiones. Think of that as the textbook, Roman Law 101. And finally, the Novellae, which was basically the update section for all the new laws Justinian himself was passing. It was a complete system reboot.
And here's the kicker. This is the thing you really have to remember. His wars, that new empire he built, most of it fell apart pretty quickly. But this legal code, it's still with us. It forms the bedrock of the legal systems in tons of countries all over the world today. His conquests were written in sand, but this was carved in stone. This is his real, lasting legacy.
So Justinian had his wars, he had his laws, and then there was project number 3, making his capital, Constantinople, the undisputed center of the world. And the funny thing is, he only got the chance to do it because his own citizens gave him a blank slate by trying to burn the whole place to the ground.
So in 532, the city just explodes. It starts as a sports riot, seriously, over chariot racing, but it quickly spirals into a massive rebellion against Justinian's crushing taxes. You know, the same taxes paying for all those wars. The city is on fire, and Justinian is ready to bolt. He's got a boat waiting. But then Theodora, his wife, steps up. She refuses to run and basically says, "I'd rather die an empress than live as a refugee." Her courage totally shamed Justinian into staying, and what happened next was just brutal. He sent his general, Belisarius, into the hippodrome, and they just slaughtered everyone, an estimated 30,000 people. It was a bloodbath. But when the smoke cleared, Justinian was in total control, and he had a whole lot of empty space to build on.
And the crown jewel of his new city was the Church of Holy Wisdom, the Hagia Sophia. They built this thing in just 5 years, which is staggering. And its main feature, the thing that just blew everyone's mind, was this massive dome. It looked like it was floating on a ring of light, just hovering in midair. The story goes that when Justinian first walked inside, he looked up and whispered, "Solomon, I have outdone thee." And honestly, he wasn't wrong. For almost 1,000 years, it was the largest enclosed space on the planet.
Okay, so we've seen the glory, the conquests, the laws, the incredible buildings. But there's a dark side to this story, a really dark side. Because for every amazing thing that happened during his reign, it felt like the universe threw an unimaginable catastrophe right back at him. I mean, just look at this. It was relentless, one thing after another. Right after the riots, a massive volcano erupts somewhere and triggers a volcanic winter, dimming the sun for over a year and causing global famine. Then, just when you think it can't get any worse, boom, the plague. The first recorded pandemic of bubonic plague sweeps through the empire, wiping out maybe a third of the population. Justinian himself caught it and barely survived. Add in a series of catastrophic earthquakes that leveled entire cities, and it really must have felt like the world itself was ending.
So that brings us to the big question, doesn't it? How do you even begin to sum this guy up? His wins were absolutely monumental, but his failures were just catastrophic. So was he great, or did he just push his empire too far, too fast?
This really lays it all out pretty clearly. In the triumphs column, you've got stuff that literally changed the world forever, like his law code and the Hagia Sophia. No question. But then you look at the failures column. He left the empire broke, the conquests he spent so much blood and treasure on, a lot of Italy was lost right after he died. People hated his taxes, and by stretching his armies so thin across his new empire, he left the old frontiers wide open for future enemies. Every single triumph seems to have a dark shadow attached to it. So, in the end, what was he? Was he the last of the Romans? The guy giving it one last glorious shot to bring back the good old days? Or, and this is the really interesting part, did he, in trying so hard to be Roman, accidentally create something totally new, something Byzantine? He spent his whole life looking backwards, trying to rebuild the past. But maybe, just maybe, his real legacy was defining the future.